Now we'll have a special coverage on this and we'll put this to discussion. First, let's get some update from Mona Kandil from Ramallah. Mona, tell us about the Palestinians' reaction to this.
Well, senior Palestinian official Dr. Hanan Ashrawi, a member of the PLO's executive committee, wrote on Twitter immediately after the declaration of this agreement that Israel got rewarded for not declaring openly what's been doing to Palestinians illegally and persistently since the beginning of the occupation. She also said that the United Arab Emirates has come forward with its secret dealings, normalization with Israel. Hamas movement in the Gaza Strip also said that the deal of the Emirates is simply a stabbing in the back of the Palestinians who have repeatedly called on the Arabs to stand by them and to back them in a way or another to force Israel not to annex part of the occupied West Bank. But it seems that according to Trump now, these relations and the normalization of relations between United Arab Emirates and Israel would postpone the annexation of large parts of the occupied West Bank for a period of time.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mona. Now, from Rhode Island, let me invite Vladimir Goldstein, lecturer at Brown University. Good to have you with us, Vladimir. So how do you look at this? Because we have a veteran Palestinian negotiator, a member of the Executive Committee of the Palestine Liberation Organization. She has tweeted and said that the UAE has come out in the open on its secret dealings. So normalization with Israel, please don't do us a favor. We are nobody's fig leaf. This is what the way she has reacted. What do you think is happening? Anything new?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something new is happening, but we should look at this from perspective of various participants. It's a big deal for Trump because, don't forget that, we have election in the United States very soon, and Trump's positions are not very strong. There is, COVID-19, there is not a good economy, there is constant failures internationally. And for Trump to declare that he brokered some kind of a deal in the Middle East, especially with such an important player in the mind of the United States as Israel, that's a big deal for him. It's a very big deal for Netanyahu, Israeli leader, because he's also at a very shaky position. There is endless protest in Israel against him. He's been in power too long. He's accused of corruption. So they can tell their own constituents that we accomplished something. This is the third deal in history with Arab countries, and we did some kind of, agreements. We promised not to get more territory in terms of West Bank and so on. So I think in terms of these countries, that's important. In terms of stability of the region, in terms of securing a peaceful life for Palestinians, in terms of the whole comprehensive approach, it's probably not much. But what we should stress, this is probably the beginning. What needs to be done, and I'm not sure the United States can be trusted with it, that every participant has to be sitting at the table and negotiating. We do know, no matter how you slice it, that even a bad peace is better than a good war. So I think only from the perspective of peace and negotiations we should proceed. But this negotiation table definitely should include not just these countries who feel we negotiate with each other and we ostracize Palestinians, we'll push away Iranians. That's not, obviously it's not a comprehensive deal. But, we can view it as a start, and we can view it as a temporary victory for these leaders. Honestly, I don't know much about internal politics of United Arab Emirates, what exactly they're trying to accomplish. But in terms of Israel and United States, their leaders might consider it as a victory. But it's temporary victory. It's one step.
Vladimir, one side of the story is the Palestinians. It's not an issue between the U.S. and Tel Aviv. It's not Washington-Tel Aviv issue. It's Israelis and the
I agree with you, and I think definitely somebody has to represent them and argue their case. But it should be everything, should be included in negotiation, and there should be a sort of compromise. At least from the surface of this agreement, we see that Israel said we're not going to annex West Bank. Maybe next step will be we're going to return something. But there should be kind of give and take on all participants. So maybe as some kind of a pattern, but definitely it's clear, as I said, it's a victory for Israel, it's a victory for the United States. It's obviously not not a victory for Palestinians. They feel that yes, maybe part of the West Bank not be annexed, but the rest of the situation is dismal. Gaza is dismal, many other places are dismal. But that's as I said.
What's the use of the plan then? It's got nothing for Palestinians, huh?
Well, I think it's probably the only good thing about it is maybe Trump will have a desire to push forward and will stop bullying Iran, stop bullying Palestinians, and will sort of push. Because every political leader probably wants to enter history as a peacemaker. So I think that's the beginning. There's nothing particularly realistic and good for time being, but at least it's better than start sending bombs and artillery and shooting each other across the border.
Okay, Vladimir, the main question is the plight that the Palestinians have been going through. You know what's going on in the Gaza Strip. It's called the largest open-air prison. And recently also Israel, the siege has been going on there for long years, and it's getting worse and worse. Fuel is not going to be allowed there, and this is what also Tel Aviv doing, in addition to what we're talking about.
Gaza is a very complicated thing, but again, my feeling is that, as I use the word comprehensive agreement, it's just definitely, obviously, Israel and United Emirates cannot solve this problem. It has to be Middle Eastern, kind of solution where every country sits there and discusses and solves the issue of Gaza. Of course, it's a wound in humanity, if you wish. Nobody approves of the situation. But I think what is better is slow negotiations, then drawing a line in the sand and start sort of military aggression, which we know unfortunately doesn't solve much.
And Vladimir, where are the Palestinians in those negotiations? It's Washington, Tel Aviv speaking to each other.
They definitely, Palestinians should be involved and Iranians should be involved. These are very important players in the whole thing. And we know that, United Arab Emirates and Saudis and Israelis and America, they look very, askance and with suspicion in Iran. And that type of deal, is not realistic. It's like, having a deal in Eastern Europe not considered in Russia. This is not a comprehensive solution, but maybe as a temporary, as a stepstone, as a pattern for further negotiation. But there is no doubt about that Palestinians should be negotiated, but I think each side should be ready for compromise.
Okay, thank you much. Well, let me go back to Mona Kandil, our correspondent in Ramallah. Mona, as a Palestinian, how do you yourself feel? Do you think anything's going to change for the better for Palestinians by just hearing this normalization, official, of course, normalization of ties between some Arab states and the Tel Aviv regime?
Well, the Palestinian leadership itself suspended all security coordination with the Israelis and stopped all contacts with the American administration. Now, of course, when they do so, they will not accept any Arab nation or Gulf state to have relations with Israel. Anyways, as we are speaking now, we have received that the Palestinian leadership called for an urgent meeting now to be chaired by President Mahmoud Abbas in order to have an official response on the declaration of the normalization of ties between United Arab Emirates and Israel.
Okay, so we'll definitely come back to it a later time and get an update on that. Thank you very much. Mona Kandil, our correspondent, joined us from Ramallah, and also Vladimir Goldstein, lecturer with Brown University, joined us from Rhode Island on this special coverage.